has shaked my hand. I met death yesterday. He shaked my hand. I haven't slept much. I hear him everywhere, see him when I shut my eyes. I can feel him in the house, even though he can't be. I've checked everywhere. With the sun going down, I'm running out of time. I don't know what I hope to get out of writing this. Part of me hopes someone will know what to do, how to take it back. Maybe someone will have an idea how to buy more time so I can figure that out. Maybe I just want someone to know what happened to me. I need to start over. Go back to this morning when it started. Could be there's something I missed. The phone ringing woke me up. Don't know the exact time, but I remember the sky outside was still tinted red and orange, so it can't have been much past sunrise. I silenced it the first time, thought it was my alarm. It started back up before I'd even sat the phone down. I should have never answered. It's not Ellie's fault, of course, but she kicked this whole thing into gear. Sorry to bother you. It's just, I'm freezing, Alan. I think my heater's out. Would you mind coming by, taking a look before I call somebody? Can't afford to waste the money. Ellie lives about a half-mile down the road. We live pretty far from town, and given she's getting up there in age, I try to keep an eye on her. More than that, she's stubborn as a mule, too proud to take handouts. I've known her 20 years, and I can count on one hand the number of times she's come right out and asked for help. I was still rubbing sleep out of my eyes, but I could hear the shiver in her voice. She spoke fast, urgent. Be happy to. How soon you need me? There's no rush, she said. Ellie wasn't even trying to hide the lie in those words. All right. Well, let me get dressed, get some coffee in me, and I'll head right over. I can make coffee for you here. The words came out in one reactionary clump. I mean, I usually have some myself anyway, so it's not a problem. Least I can do. I started to ask if everything was okay when the line went dead. When I got there, she was standing on the front porch, wringing her hands together. I could see the sweat speckling her forehead from the car. Her skin tinged red. She looked more like she'd just run a marathon than was worried about the cold. She came out to meet me, kept glancing down the drive behind me. Mud tugged at her bare feet, and she hardly seemed to notice. When she got to the car, she pulled the door open, practically pulled me out of it. Thanks for coming, Alan. I swear that thing is always on the fritz. Her hands burned against my skin. I should have called an ambulance right then. They might have sent the cops too. Not sure it would have mattered much after everything that's happened, but still. As soon as we were in the door, she slammed it shut, threw the deadbolt. The inside of her cabin was a little chilly, but not nearly so cold she would have called about it. What stood out more than the cold was the dark. Like Ellie wanted the whole place in shadows, tracked down every way something could push them back and squashed it out. Every curtain pulled shut, all the lamps off, and as my eyes adjusted, I could see all the power cord for the television pulled from the wall. Say, Ellie, you mind if I turn the light on? Her eyes snapped over to me, begged me not to touch it. I hadn't even heard her move over to the window. A thin line of sunlight carved a column across her face, lit one beady and wild eye as she peeked through the curtains. I think she realized how she looked, blinked it away. I mean, no, the power's out. I guess the heater might have knocked it out or something. Right, I said. I believed it then about as much as you probably do now. Well, you got a flashlight or something, even a candle. She didn't hear me, just kept staring out the window at the driveway. Her hand sent a shudder through the whole curtain, and the red had run out of her face. Ellie, is everything all right? When she still ignored me, I raised my voice a bit. I feel bad yelling at a woman like that, but the hairs on my neck were starting to stand, and I could feel my heart starting to pick up the pace. That kind of fear I could see in her, it's contagious. Ellie? That was enough to get her to flinch at least. Sorry, the power going out, it's got me a little on edge is all. I'm fine. I watched her for a moment, trying to gauge how much to push just yet. The way she was shaking, I couldn't bring myself to call her a liar. Well, you know where the breaker box is. She nodded, somehow peeled herself away from that window. When the curtain shut, the world went dark again. I started to take my phone from my pocket, but Ellie must have expected it, put a stern and trembling hand on mine to stop me. The van sputtered to life, drove away at a crawl, the man at the wheel dragging the departure out. When the van receded out of sight, I turned around. Light coming through the door cut a path through the dark, and I could see Ellie standing at the edge of it, afraid to step too far forward like the sun might burn. Thank you, Alan. I nodded, not sure what else to do. What do you say after something like that? You want me to wait with you for the power? To see if he comes back? What? I could see the shadow take a slow step back. Oh, the power. Right. No, that's okay. Someone will be out eventually. You should go. Don't want to keep you. I know your schedule is full. I opened my mouth to say something, anything, but she was already shuffling off into the dark, disappearing into one of the rooms. I heard a door swing shut, heard the click of the latch, then the click of the lock. I thought about walking down there, knocking on the door, demanding an answer. Probably should have. But I know a sign to leave when I see one. So I left. I was about halfway home when I saw it in the rearview mirror. The van was following me. It was far enough back that the hills hid it every now and then, the trees masking its pursuit. But it was there, no mistaking it. I sped up, hoping it was a coincidence and it had just gotten turned around, knowing it wasn't. It followed me all the way to my house, even pulled into my driveway as I stepped inside. I watched it out the window for a long while, no point hiding. The man had watched me walk in the front door. The windshield was so dark I couldn't see him, but I could feel those eyes on me again, burning right through me. After a few minutes, he left. It was dark before I trusted enough to leave that window, even for a moment. My stomach did me in, I think. I hadn't eaten all day, and it finally made enough noise that I had to do something about it. I threw a pizza in the oven, went back to my post, left to throw a few pieces on a plate, went back to the window. I sat at that window until the sun was a distant memory, and the trees stayed visible even when I blinked. Their imprint burned into my sight. That van never came back. I started to wonder if I was overreacting, if it was just a weird guy who bothered Ellie every now and then. I tried calling her 6 or 7 times throughout the night. She never answered. She was seeing the calls, though. They kept ringing, once, maybe twice, before the voicemail clicked in. I don't know when I fell asleep. Knocking woke me up. 3 heavy thumps stabbed through my chest. When I didn't move, fear holding me to the spot, the knocks came again. I knew they would. I still didn't move. Sat in the dark. Hoped beyond hope I hadn't been seen through. The window? The front door was the only thing keeping me away from him now. If I could have melted into the chair, become nothing, maybe he would have left. He's a busy man after all. A soft click shattered the silence, and the doorknob started to turn. It turned all the way, pressed against the deadbolt with a clack, relaxed, and I thought it was over. I thought I was safe. I thought I would be okay right up until I heard a quiet pop, the whisper of windows sliding open somewhere in the house. I ran upstairs. I don't know where the sound came from, but it couldn't be up there, right? I got to the bathroom, there's no window in there, and shut the door as quietly as it would allow. I leaned against it, held it shut, wedged my feet against the bathtub if I needed to push back harder. When I reached into my pocket hoping to call the police, I found it empty. I didn't hear his footsteps earlier, but I heard them now. The faint tap on hardwood like a heartbeat as he climbed the steps. The slow stride down the hall stopping at each door. I could feel his eyes sweeping over the dark, searching. The house ran cold, and there was a smell to him. Only thing I can think of like it was back in college, when our fridge died while we were out of town. Sat like that for 3 weeks. It wasn't the smell when we first got back. The one that turned our stomachs inside out when we first got home, that I smelled on him. It was the smell that stained that fridge. The kind that you can't wash off. The kind that reminds you of mold and rot and infection as long as you live. I heard the feet stop behind me, hovering outside the bathroom door. I'd never thought about what the door was made of, but it seemed suddenly so important. The doorknob turned left, right, the cold metal brushing against my hair. Then it stopped. The weight behind me loomed, and I heard something faint shift, lower down to me, press against the other side of the door. He whispered. He might have been in the room with me for how loud the words came. I felt his frigid breath on my skin, heard the hiss under each syllable, heard the rocks in his gut rolling around with the effort. I followed Ellie back into the house by sound alone. My knee hit the corner of the table, and the worry of being heard by something was worse than the pain, somehow. She led me back to a closet, opened it slow for me, stopping any time the door creaked. It's in here, just be quiet. I nodded, not that she could see me, and I heard her shuffle off somewhere into the darkness. Running my fingers over the breakers, I tried to piece together what might be happening. Was she as sick as she looked? Every now and then I could hear Ellie moving around in the house, but it seemed to shift, bouncing from room to room without the sound of her walking between them. The knock at the door kicked me out of it. I swear, standing there in that dark, they sounded like a bell ringing at first. Not a doorbell, but one of those big, heavy church bells. I leaned back, could see light peeking through the seam of the door, see the 2 patches of dark where shadow blocked out the sun. I waited for Ellie to go and answer, strained to find her in the dark. The only thing I found was another 3 steady knocks. I don't know why I went to the door. I guess I thought whatever was on the other side, it might be the real reason Ellie called me. if I could just get it to go away, I could wake up from this nightmare and go home, go about my day. The man on the other side looked at me as soon as the door opened. Most of what I remember is vague. Neat black hair, average height. I remember his cheeks sucked inward into his skull, the wrinkles carving crevices over his skin, and the way his clothes seemed to fall over him like there was nothing inside but bone. His eyes, though. I see them when I shut my eyes, bloodshot, his pupils like burning coal in the light and dark mine shafts in the shadow. I never understood the phrase, "if looks could kill," before then, but those eyes knew nothing else. Behind him, a panel van sat on the dirt driveway, the body painted so dark a black that it seemed to suck the light out of the air. Worse, it sat right where the trees gave way, blocking my car in. "Afternoon," the man said, doing his best to fill cold words with warmth. His voice sounded like his lungs were filled with gravel, and his smile seemed like pins held it in place. "Alan, I take it?" "Yes, sir." Felt like the word was pulled out of me more than I spoke it. I held my hand out, hoping that it might diffuse whatever this was. "Do I know you? Apologies if we've met before. Must be slipping my mind." He did, sir. Glanced down at the hand, ignored it. Wind whipped a chill through the trees, cold enough that it sent a shiver down my spine, and the man swayed to one side like he might fall over, all the while his expectant eyes staring through me. "All right, then. There's something I can help you with?" "I certainly hope so. I'm looking for Eleanor." "Not here," I said fast, regretted faster. "I can let her know you stopped by if you like. I'm afraid I can't wait. Busy schedule these days. On a Saturday." "Oh, every day. If I could just speak with her, I'll be out of your hair." "Like I said," I shrugged. "She's not here." I could see in the twitch of his smile he didn't believe me. "Alan, it is in your best interest to send Eleanor to the door." I thought of that old woman, all the times she'd brought me dinner out of the blue, or sent care packages any time I was sick. Salt of the earth, that woman. If this man scared her so bad, I couldn't send her out here. "Wish I could. Guess you'll just have to rearrange your schedule a bit." He stared so long, those eyes never shifting, that faint smile never fading, his chest never drawing breath, that I thought he died standing up. With a click of the tongue, he cocked his head to the side. "You sure you want that?" I could hear a voice screaming at me in the back of my head, telling me to just stand aside, let whatever happened happen. I could just go back to my car, wait for this to play out, for this man to get back in his car and leave so I could drive away, like I was never there. If the van hadn't blocked the way out, I would have, truth be told. I don't see much other option. "All right, if you insist." It was his turn to hold a hand out. It hovered, too close to my chest, right about my heart, spindly fingers grazing the fabric. I shook it. I could feel every bone in his grip, and ice ran up my arm. He held on too long, refusing to let me pull away. Barely even seemed to be trying to hold my hand in place, to keep my gaze locked on his. When he let go, I took a step back, thought about slamming the door in his face like it would have made any difference then. He just kept smiling. "I'll be in touch," Then he turned, walked back out to his car. Thinking back, I don't think his feet crunched on the dirt. If they did, I was too happy seeing the back of him. Too happy having those eyes off of me to notice. I felt his frigid breath on my skin, heard the hiss under each syllable, heard the rocks in his gut rolling around with the effort. We had a deal, Alan. Tomorrow's going to be worse, and it'll keep getting worse until we're done. I have a schedule to keep. And then he left, turned, walked back down the hall, down the stairs. I even heard the window shut. The van coughed awake, idled in the yard for too long, waiting to see if I would come out. I didn't move until I heard it roll away and out of earshot. I ran downstairs, found my phone. I kept my eyes off the thick, muddy footprints on the floor while I called the police. They were there in 15 minutes, found me huddled back in the bathroom. It took 2 of them speaking to coax me out. Outside, lights cast the forest into flashing hues of red and blue. I scanned them the entire time we spoke, felt eyes watching me from the trees. I told the 2 officers what happened, and they let me sit in their car while one searched the house. When he came back out, he looked like he had good news. Even I thought it was at first. There's nothing. You're sure? The cop grinned. Yes, sir. We're sure. Happy to walk through again with you if you'd like to see for yourself. No sign anyone was in there in the first place. I blinked. No sign? What about the footprints? The cop blinked twice, not understanding. Didn't see any. Where were they? He handled my panic well enough, even went back inside to check for them. Still nothing. They took a description of the man at least, and then they left. The footprints are gone, like they were never there. Maybe I imagined them. Maybe I imagined all of this, just one long bad dream. I stayed up all night, still haven't slept. Outside the sun is setting, and even now I feel like someone's lurking in the trees, waiting for me to look away. I've checked all the locks, made sure my phone and computer are in the bathroom, even some food. I ordered some cameras, but they won't be here until tomorrow. Called Ellie a few dozen times and still no answer. I would have driven over there, but she won't be home. Not if she's as smart as I think she is. And now, if for nothing else than to try and pass the time, I'm writing this. I have to do something. I'm praying someone has an answer, but I'm guessing those prayers will go unanswered too.